Wait, that's copyrighted. I'm only allowed to play like 3 seconds of it.
No, 5 seconons.
Is it 5? Are you sure about that?
We'll split the difference. We'll split the difference. Play 4 seconds.
No, you know what's really funny is when Google Plus automatically pulls up our podcast and then plays over my speakers, which plays into my microphone, which then is like a infinite loop. Oh, it crashed. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I can hear horrible things. Horrible things are happening.
That's really too bad. That might be my neighbor walking around upstairs. I'm not sure. Hello, listener, and welcome to episode 100,000 of Unqualified Gamers. This is our first triple-digit episode, unless you count Triple X starring Vin Diesel, which you probably shouldn't because that's not an episode of our podcast. Or is it?
I mean, when you play Mega Man, it always starts off in the year 19XX.
It's 20XX.
It always starts off in the year 20XX, which could be any year in the 20s.
Right, in the 20s.
So really, XXX could be, like, it could have been 055, which was an episode of our show.
055 was an episode of our show?
It could have been 008, which was an episode of our show.
Well, yeah, 008 actually was an episode of our show. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right. So, technically, Triple X might have been an episode of our show.
Well, cool.
It earned us far more money than all of the other episodes combined, I can tell you that.
Well, do you have anything big in store for this 100th episode, John?
I was just going to make fun of you a bunch, call you ugly, I don't know, and that drink really was my plan.
That's what I was gonna say. So I mean, I've made a big deal about this episode for quite some time now.
You are hideous tonight.
What is wrong?
Have I told you that?
What is your hang up with my hair? What is your hang up with my hair? I'm looking at it in my TV right now. What is wrong with my hair?
I don't. It's the piece in front. It's just.
How's that? Is that better?
No, it's just all bad. No, it's just...
I look like a sexy Leonardo DiCaprio. What do you want me to do?
I want you basically to not be here.
I'm at least dressed up. Look, I'm wearing a work shirt and sport coat. This is corduroy, John. What are you wearing? The same thing you wear literally every week.
Something not from the 70s, like corduroy?
Yeah, I'm sorry that corduroy, I'm bringing it back. All right? It's fetch.
Quit trying to make fetch work. It's never going to work.
I already made it work because I said it.
Okay. So anyway, you're drinking whiskey out of a mug with a handle, which is odd.
I'm not. I actually just had a sip of orange juice, you asshole.
Oh, I'm sorry.
However, I will say that I do have next to me, what is this? This is a tumbler of whiskey. Listener, let me explain something to you very carefully. Right now. Once John and I realized that we had reached 100 episodes, I think that all of us can agree, including you actually at home, that we no longer have to try.
I honestly was never trying, so that's fine.
John was never trying. I, however, was putting in at least a marginal amount of effort into this Unqualified Gamers video game podcast endeavor, but I no longer need to. In fact, I'm going to drag windows around my TV until prompts go away. There they are. And then you may notice, if you're watching this on YouTube and not listening to the audio podcast, I'm in my living room right now. Normally I broadcast from my bedroom, but because none of the 3 laptops that I own are currently capable of processing an actual podcast.
To be fair, you bought one for like $50. Like, you can't expect that computer to work well.
Right. And
$50.
And to be fair, I didn't expect it to work well. I just was hoping it could at least run Google Hangouts while recording at the same time, but obviously that was too much. So here we are, and I'm in my living room. I also thought it would be like a cool special edition change of scene kind of a thing. I've got like my blanket. This is my spot where I sit when I'm gaming. I'm usually like leaning back behind me, but this is my couch where I game. And then if I look past the camera, I can see the telly, which is
So
hooked up to my
what you're saying is that this is where the magic happens. Like if this were an episode of Cribs and they walked in and you were showing off your apartment, you would introduce this area as this is where the magic happens.
Yes, this is where the magic happens.
Okay.
So, so audio listener, I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel if you're morbidly curious to visualize where the magic happens. But in the meantime, Jonathan, I was waiting to start drinking this whiskey to toast you to 100 episodes of mediocrity.
I can toast to that. I think I can honestly say that I am the least proud that I have ever been for anything that I've been committed to for this long as I am to this podcast.
Ever.
So that's probably not a good thing.
Well, a milestone is a milestone is a milestone, as Herbert Hoover, the third president of the United States, did say in his inauguration.
And
he did say that.
Tails' first name is Miles.
Tails' first name is Miles, exactly.
Which is close to milestone.
So, drinker, if you are not a listener, that's okay. We do not encourage listening to this podcast, but you know.
We do encourage drinking while listening to this podcast, though.
Wait, did I say that backwards?
No, I think you actually said it correctly.
Well, in any event, we do not encourage drinking, especially to excess. But John and I do deserve a toast, I think, to ourselves because we are so narcissistic that that here we are. Look at us.
It's been a long time. Like
Wait, did you drink? Because I haven't yet. I've just been holding.
No. Okay. Here, let's cheers. Here.
We're cheersing. I will hit my camera, which will break my computer, shattering it. And
therefore, you will not have any computer that works to be able to do this. So, listener, we started this, and this is not going to be a standard episode by any means of this podcast. We started this podcast in 2011. Was that our first episode? I mean, it was forever ago.
It's not. Oh,
I think it was back in 2004. Cody and I had just exited middle school.
Yeah.
We were like, we need to bring. Those years don't work out at all. No, I think was our first episode like 2012 though.
I think 2012.
It really was 2012 or 11. It's been a long time, and we were just when we very first decided to do this podcast, we were like, we want to start a podcast because we wanted a way to keep in touch. That was like one of the main reasons why we did this, because you and I were in very different places of the country, and so we were like, we need a way to keep in touch, and we both love video games, so like what better way to do, and we both like to hear ourselves talk, let's be honest. I certainly don't like to hear you talk, but I'd love to hear myself talk. So this was like the perfect idea for us. So we started a podcast, and we just kind of ran with it for a couple of episodes, and it was never when we very first started, it wasn't a regular scheduled thing, which it probably should have been, because it seems to be a lot more successful when we do it that way. But
generally how the internet works.
Yeah, but we were making like on average like an episode a month for a while, and that was fun and it was good. And then we really started to pick up pace at like what, episode like 20-ish. And for the most part, we tried to put out one weekly at that point, and then there were some periods of time where we didn't. But for the most part, we've tried to be on a weekly schedule then, and it's been really fun. It has been a really enjoyable thing for me. When you do less.
Right.
It's been a great thing for me.
Yeah, I know it was 2012 because 2013, 2014, 2015, so it's been about 3 years, right?
That's crazy. I haven't committed to anything in my life ever for more than 3 years.
Including your marriage.
Yeah, no, we're married 3 years. That checks out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got nothing then.
Yeah.
However, the reason I know it's 100 is because the first year we did this podcast, we were weekly for the first like few months, but as many things go, as many things in life happen, you commit to something and you think you're going to do it forever. Like I did DDP yoga for like 6 weeks out of the 9, but then I just like stopped. because it stops being your routine. We stopped having a schedule. So like as of like the first summer we were doing it, we were barely doing it. But so the first year we did it, we did maybe 25, 30 episodes, I would say, ish. Actually, that's maybe even be like a high estimate.
I don't think we did that many.
Yeah, we maybe did like 20 or 25. I think it may have only even been 20. So anyway, we got to a slow start.
Yeah.
Second year we were a little bit, we got better, and then we were sparse again, really sparse over the summer. And I think it was like late summer 2013, I want to say, we really started to get regular. And then last year in 2014, we were like very regular. We only missed a few around the holidays. Now we're in 2015, haven't missed a week yet somehow, and that's why we got to 100 after 3 years when we should have been here a year ago. But better late than never. And it's funny you talk about like we wanted to do a thing to keep in touch with our friends. All I remember is that I was living with I had a roommate at the time that you wanted to start this podcast. My roommate and I used to be friends before he became a sociopath and tried to kill me. But before that, we got along, and everyone used to tell us we should do a podcast together because we were just this like wacky zany duo, and we like
and then you did.
And then we did. And that lasted 11 episodes, I want to say. So that went nowhere. But literally the same month he got a microphone that was intended for podcasting, Jon was just like, I've always wanted to do a video game podcast. This is what I remember. I remember you saying, I've always wanted to do a video game podcast.
So, listener, for the record, I've been listening to podcasts for about 6 years. I jumped on podcasts when they were like a new thing. It was like a new thing. It was like bringing it was like taking the radio back because radio was dying, right? And podcasts were like it was a radio that was specifically made like for you. Like you could find podcasts about anything. You can find podcasts about like sewing. So if you are that into sewing, you can find a podcast about sewing, and I loved that. I loved that I had like 3 podcasts that there's a guy named Garnet Lee who is one of my biggest inspirations for podcasting, and he was very first on the One Up Yours podcast. That was like his podcast when he was still working for One Up like 6 years ago. And I started listening to him and I was like, holy shit, this is like they are having a ton of fun. They're playing video games and talking about them. And it sounds really fun. Like it just sounds like they were having an awesome time. And I was like, I really would love to do this because I love playing video games and I love to have a good time. So eventually, years down the road after I was listening to podcasts.
But wait, hold on. I thought you hate having a good time.
I hate you.
Oh,
I like having a good time. It's hard for me to do that when I have to do this with you. So you are my less than bronze medal because there are tens of hundreds of people that I would rather do this with than you, but none of them will do this with me. So you are my consolation prize. You are my participation medal. So thank you for being my participation medal. I don't really know what you're doing here. So what you're saying is you remember me saying I would like to do a video game podcast, and you were a good candidate because you had done radio before and knew how to produce things.
I was doing radio. I was producing a major market radio show, which I still produce, actually.
Right.
But I'm a producer. I'm like, if you've ever seen Frasier, I'm like Roz. Like I get on there sometimes, but I'm not a host. And I was like, well, it'd be nice if I I don't know, did something like that I wanted. Like, I mean, I love doing that show, and I get to do a lot of creative things I like doing. But like, I'm not hosting a show. It's not like, oh, talk about what I want to talk about, and there you go. So this was my opportunity to do that. And it apparently has been enjoyed by some people, because before we move on, Jon, because I'd like to intersperse a couple things in this podcast as we go along.
We had some really nice friends of ours send in some touching messages.
We did. So you generally at the beginning of our podcast, you on the audio version at least, you hear us say that this podcast is something about the Gonna Geek Network, something dark side. I'm trying to remember how it goes. Jon, you're really familiar with how it goes, right?
Yeah, it's this podcast is part of the Gonna Geek Network. For more geeky podcasts, check out GonnaGeek.com. Geekiness.
Oh wait, hold on. Is this it?
This podcast is part of the Gonna Geek Network. The opinions expressed may not reflect those of other podcasts or affiliates of this show or Gonna Geek. Check out other geeky podcasts at GonnaGeek.com. And get ready because geekiness commences in 3, 2, 1.
That's the spot. That is the spot.
That's how it goes.
That is how it goes.
So that's how we do it, and it's funny because we basically start every episode by saying that we're part of the Gonna Geek Network, and we've done very little interaction with the other members of the Gonna. Like, I've appeared on All Things Good and Nerdy a few times, but for the most part, like we're the only gaming podcast. Gonna Geek Network has podcasts on like nerdy shows like Doctor Who or Walking Dead and other nerdy things and other geeky things, but we're like the gamers of the Gonna Geek Network. So I think in that way, and because we're both hideous and have several diseases, we're pariahs a bit.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Right.
All of those things you just said.
But they were nice enough. Apparently, some of them are very avid listeners that are just huge fans of our podcast, and they sent in a couple congratulations. Now, I have not previewed any of these, so we'll just go with what they are. But before we continue talking about our podcast lives, Jon and I would like to play with you a message that we received from a member of the Gonna Geek Network.
This is Haley.
Lobster. And Rum Daddy from Crimson Comet.
Sending one out to Don and Corey of Hunger Gamers Podcast. Congratulations on your 1,000th episode. May the odds be ever in your favor.
I thought it was Chris and Jake.
No. It's Rob and Bodie.
Oh, okay. Well, anyways, we love the way you guys talk about board games every week.
Keep up the okay work.
Bye.
See ya.
Later, guys.
Have you even heard of these guys before?
I have listened to their episodes.
What is this?
Oh,
Hunger
let me turn this
Gamers?
off, guys.
I think that there was an error in that recording at the end, or something.
I think. I don't know if they've ever actually listened to an episode of this show.
No, it sounds like they have. I think they just. I think they were drinking like we are doing.
Yeah.
That was what we were actually doing was a public service announcement to warn listeners. Hey, we have a listener right now listening. Christopher Long, our good friend, is on the Q&A feature because he's listening to our 100th episode live, our 100th episode extravaganza celebration. And Christopher has a question for us. Jon, why don't you go ahead?
Christopher asks, do I any more need to read?
No.
No. The answer to that question is no. That is actually, that we toyed with that being the catchphrase of our podcast for a while.
Yes. Unqualified Gamers.
You no longer need any more to read.
Instead, get high.
Right. That was our, we toyed with that. We thought it might be a little controversial and we wanted to appeal to a broader masses. I mean, you know how that is in marketing. I mean, that's right. So, but no, we did talk about that. So,
well, I have more shout-outs from the Gonna Geek Network, but we'll get to those later. We'll sprinkle them into the podcast, although I'm not sure how we can possibly top that first one.
Oh, I mean, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
They obviously cared a lot. They cared a lot about this podcast.
Sure. So anyway, we were talking about why we got into this. So you because before, honestly, it's kind of funny because before we started doing a podcast, I didn't really listen to any.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I wasn't really surprised. I didn't have I was listening to podcasts. I literally knew nobody else that was listening to podcasts at the time. Like I feel like podcasts have really blown up over the past just couple of years. So I really feel like I was kind of like I didn't even know if they were going to be a big thing. I just kind of started listening to them because I couldn't find content that was like that felt like it was tailored to me, I guess, specifically. Through like TV or radio or what have you, right? Because I was really into video games at the time. I didn't have a kid at the time. You know, my wife and I had like just gotten married, so everything was like super easy. I had a ton of free time because of the way my work schedule worked. Like there was plenty of time where I was home alone without her around, without my wife around, so I had a lot of time to play video games. Like I was playing a lot of video games when we first started this podcast, a ton of video games when we first started this podcast. So it just made sense. It made sense to start it.
It did. So you've mentioned on this podcast before that you used to listen to the One Up podcast, but that is no longer a thing, right?
Yeah, I mean that's been gone for years. It's been gone for years.
What have you replaced it with?
So the podcast that I ended up finding was the Giant Bombcast, which is and has been the #1 video game podcast for ever. I don't know, forever. When I originally started listening to them, they had a host on there named Ryan Davis, who tragically passed away about a year and 2 months ago. And he was really the lifeblood of that show. But it was one of the most fun shows, and still is. They still do a wonderful job. I still listen to every episode. I have not missed an episode of that show ever. It is like just one of the most entertaining shows. The guys there are just very good friends, and so it comes out in the way that they do the podcast. So that is like the one still that I listen to on a completely regular basis. And then I branched out because I love video games. That's not the only thing I love. So there's tons of other podcasts I listen to now too. Like I listen to NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me every week. And that gives me just a little bit of news that I care to know about. I listen to Stuff You Should Know, which is a podcast just about random topics.
I've heard a lot of good things about Stuff You Should Know. One of my old coworkers loved it.
Yeah, it's a fun podcast. So I just listen to these other random podcasts that take up time and they help kill my commute, which is, something I have to do. So yeah, it's great. I love podcasts, and I love to be able to create one and send it out there to die, because that's what we do. To die,
yeah, that's generally what we do.
What we do.
I will say I enjoy the NPR podcasts when I hear them. I've listened to several episodes of This American Life, but I'm not always interested in them. There's a really, really good 2-part episode on gang violence in Chicago, where they go to Chicago schools where there's a lot of gang violence, and they do this very in-depth story, and everyone should listen to that, especially people that live in Chicago. Anybody that thinks they know anything about gang violence needs to listen to it. Really, really good. But what I did listen to, which makes me a very basic person, did you not listen to Serial?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, any desire to, or why not?
Yeah, but my wife and I are going to listen to it together. So we have to find a time where we can sit down and listen to the radio.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I binged it in about a week right after it happened, and a lot of people dislike it. I don't know if you've heard, because obviously it's a craze in a lot of people.
I just heard that a lot of people liked it. So
a lot of people do love it, but I was surprised. There's a few people on my Facebook feed who really disliked it. It raises a lot of interesting questions about journalism that I won't get into because I don't care, because I'm drinking whiskey on the 100th episode of Unqualified Gamers. I don't want to get into it, but I enjoyed it. I think certain people that disliked it felt like they had to enjoy it for certain reasons, but there's a lot of different reasons why you can enjoy it.
The point is that there's a lot of good podcasts out there. Is kind of what we're getting at here.
Hey, there's a lot of elaborate on what I enjoy. You talked about Giant Bombcast. Where's my 5 seconds of fame, John?
Okay, no, that's good. What does that have to do with the video games again?
What does Giant Bombcast have to do with video games?
It's literally a video game podcast.
What does a video game podcast have to do with video games? Necessarily.
So did you like cereal?
I don't remember. Hey, I'd like to give a couple listener shout-outs right now. Is that okay with you?
Of course. Didn't we
Great.
just do that?
I posted earlier today, like an hour before we did this. Are there any favorite moments you've had? Or are there any shout-outs you want to give or anything like that? And of course we'll feature you because we're very listener-centric and we like to cater to you. Some of our listeners have even been featured as hosts on our podcast. If you go to unqualifiedgamers.com, there is an entire section, there's a tag labeled guest hosts. If you search for guest hosts, it'll actually give you a list of podcasts that have been co-hosted by guest hosts, including some people that we may hear from later. Haha, there's a tease for you. But anyway, so I posited that if you have anything to say to us, give you a little shout out. So just want to give a shout out to Betty Page, that said congratulations on your 100th episode. I hope you guys have hundreds more. Thanks so much, Betty Page. And Christopher Long said, I asked, do you have like kind of a favorite Unqualified Gamers bit or moment or anything like that? And Christopher said, I loved your whole literally series of jokes.
That was literally my favorite opening we ever did.
Well, that's funny that you should say that because I pulled that opening because Christopher is a very loyal listener and we really appreciate him. So I saw that comment and I was like, I need to replay this because unless you have been a long-time listener, you have not heard this opening bit. So it's only a minute and like 10 seconds, but it needs to be replayed while you and I drink whiskey. So in episode 37 of our podcast, this is not the opening in its entirety, but I cut it down a little bit.
Do you have a date on that?
Oh my gosh, do I? Not offhand.
That's fine.
I'll find it by the time the clip is over.
Yeah.
But here is the opening to episode 37, and John and I use the word literally all the time on this podcast. Here's kind of where that comes from.
You want to hear something ridiculous? The definition of literally has now changed to make literally mean figuratively, apparently.
No.
Yeah, no, I swear to God.
Where did you hear that?
I heard it on a podcast.
You're full of shit.
I'm not full of
Link me right now.
Yes, the fourth definition of literally now on dictionary.com is, in effect, in substance, very nearly, virtually. That is the fourth definition now. And virtually is not the same thing as exactly, which is what literally is.
That is one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Isn't that ridiculous? So, it's dumb. It's dumb, and it's just it's the dumbing down of language. We've dumbed down language. I literally think that we dumb down language. And now the thing is you can't use it improperly anymore, right? Like, there's no improper way to use literally. Because literally can mean both literally and figuratively now.
I'm moving to Canada.
So there's that, is what happened. And that was August 2013. So it was the month of Gen Con.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
If you recall. So yeah, a long time ago. So unless you've been listening to us for a year and a half, ostensibly you would have missed that. But yeah, feel free to go back and check out the whole episode on unqualifiedgamers.com. There's even now a new page I created called How to Listen at the top of our website. And if you click that, it can tell you about the apps you can use. And we have a new app on the Google Play Store, Unqualified Gamers Podcast app. A lot of different ways to listen and where you can find that. There's a search bar on the side of our website where you can search for any of the games we've done, anything like that. And it's pretty easy to find our stuff, which is great. Aren't you happy that happened, John?
I am happy.
First time for everything.
Do you have any more because we've got a lot of messages that our friends sent us, don't we?
We do, yeah. I was gonna say, since we are kind of focused on listeners right this second,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pull up another shout out we got from another colleague at the Gonna Geek Network, which I'm sure is going to be much
the same and great as our last
one.
one.
Greater than perhaps the last one. Not to rate it or anything, but I'm sure these people will be very familiar with what we do here at Unqualified Gamers.
This is Kier.
This is Haley.
And this is Jay from Gallifrey Public Radio.
Oh yeah.
Congratulations to the guys over at Uncontroverted Gamers on their 10th episode.
It's 10. That's a really big number. Way to go, guys.
Yeah, keep striving for mediocrity there. Good job, Craig and Joey.
You're going to make it. I like Joey. He's my favorite.
Joey's the funny one, right?
He's the one to be a girl.
I've honestly never once listened to any of their episodes.
I haven't either.
Got a good network here that we're working with.
Thank you, Gallifrey Public Radio. Yes. Excellent. That is a great Doctor Who podcast, Gallifrey, Doctor Who. So where the Doctor is from, Gallifrey.
Yeah.
So,
And they've obviously listened to plenty of episodes.
good friends of ours. Very good friends of ours,
Yeah.
obviously. And,
Yeah.
So continue with words.
So this is a video game podcast. Occasionally we do play video games. Normally we do each have a game to talk about on the podcast, and by normally each of us has a game, I mean normally I have something to talk about, and Cody says that he no longer plays video games.
That is only true as of the last 15 to 30 episodes.
Okay, have you played a game for this week's
I
podcast?
played Hearthstone a bunch.
Yeah, have you really?
I got my whole warrior deck.
Okay, so that's like your favorite class? Is that kind of how it is?
No, I mean, I don't know. He's all right. The warrior is one of 9 classes, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I have the warrior. So I have the warrior deck, which is great. Is it called warrior?
That is the name of the class. Yep.
Okay, cool.
No,
Yeah,
you're doing good. You're
I
doing good.
win regularly-ish. It's It's like Hyrule Warriors for me. I can't play it for hours on end.
No, and I think that's. I mean, I'm not gonna say that there's an intended way to play the game, but when your average game lasts 5 to 15 minutes, I think that they are kind of not intending you to binge it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just I don't know what it is. The last game I can remember being able to sit and just play for hours and hours on end was probably.
Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13-3, a legend. Lightning Returns.
You know what is really sad is I think that may be true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know it is. I know it is.
Like Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13, which I played last spring, I would play for 8 hours. Well, or Civilization 5, but that goes without saying. But honestly, even Smash Brothers, even the new Smash Brothers, which I've gone on record a zillion times saying Smash Brothers is my favorite franchise, I can't, I'll play classic mode a couple times and then maybe some online battles, but I can't play huge chunks of time anymore. I'm like becoming a new type of gamer, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, quite frankly. How do you feel about it?
I mean, I've been at that place for a while. It's the reason why, like, the games that I have been playing have been Binding of Isaac. That's the game. That's a game that I have talked about frequently. Warframe, which I just talked about. League of Legends, which was a giant game for me. Hearthstone, which I flippin' love. It's the like. Because of the amount of time I have now to play video games, and that I'm fairly certain that is the main reason why my gaming habits have changed to the way that they are. I like games that I can drop in and play at the most for like 50 minutes to an hour at a time, feel like I've accomplished something, have that contribute to a larger goal, and then drop out again. And every one of those games that I just said has that characteristic.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, you play Rogue Legacy, you play 2 runs in 45 minutes, and you unlock some upgrades in the main castle that are permanent upgrades for your character, and you've made progress, but you've done like a start to finish run of the game, and so you feel like you accomplished something, and you like played through the game once. So it just like fits into my lifestyle now, is basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's just interesting to me.
So I am totally okay with that style of gaming because that is how I game.
Right. So okay, so that makes sense. But what I'm saying is, so let's say a run or a round or whatever it is takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half hour. It doesn't matter. It's interesting to me that I can play only 3 or 4 of those and then be like, let's say I have a full day. I have a whole afternoon, and it's like Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. I woke up absurdly early for me, for some reason, on a Saturday, and I don't have anything planned the whole rest of the day. All my friends are out of town or busy or whatever. I may go out at like 8 or 9 at night, but I basically got 12 hours to myself, and I'll play like 2 hours of something, and then I'm like, well, time to do something else. Like, that's what's interesting to me, because that didn't happen with Lightning Returns. Lightning Returns, I would wake up at 10, play until 6 or 7 at night, and kind of not miss a beat. You know, I'd feed myself, but that was kind of it. Like, these short-form games, it's like completing the whole cycle, like restarting it. It's just a different rhythm, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to argue with you that that's probably a healthier way to engage in one of your hobbies, to play it for an hour or two when you have a day's worth of time, and then do something else.
But if you have 10 hours of free time to play a video game, straight.
No. You have 10 hours free to do stuff.
If you have 10 hours free to do stuff, and
you spend 20% of that time engaged in a hobby of yours, which is video games.
Right, and that's fine.
That's probably a healthy use of some of that free time.
But then if you don't spend the rest of the 80% of that free time, then I don't understand. What's the point of having free time?
So, I have less free time than you, because I have a baby. I think that that's fair to say. I think we can just objectively say I have less free time.
But I'm just saying, what if, like, all right. You've seen Doctor Who, right?
I've seen like 3 episodes.
Okay, what if the Doctor appeared in his TARDIS and whisked your wife and your baby away to, like, another planet for, like, a few days?
Is that a politically correct way to refer to that group of people?
For, like, a few days, right? Okay? I just got what you're saying, and I want you to know the only reason I even found that remotely amusing, because you're so pleased with yourself right now, is because I am almost done with my whiskey, all right? Which, by the way, is in a Russian glass. It says Zalyubov, which means to love in Klingon, and on the front it said Russian Standard Vodka, which is not what I'm drinking. I'm drinking whiskey, but Russian Standard Vodka is Russian for Kapla, which, as we all know, means what in Klingon?
Cheers. Normally you would put Gak in there, right?
Damn it, Jon! Kapla means victory. It was in your brother's wedding toast to you.
Yeah,
it actually was.
It was. Yeah, no, it was.
He had your wedding toast with Kapla, which was the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And I think Max nearly inhaled his drink at that time and choked and died.
Okay.
Pretty sure. But what were we talking about? Listen.
Free time.
Let's say you had 3 days free, magically, all right?
And
because of Time Lords and TARDISes, etc. And you didn't spend that 3 full days playing video games. then why would you live?
So there's lots of other things. So video games are awesome, and I love them. And there's still other stuff that I can do with my free time. Like, I want to play video games with my free time, and then there's like other stuff I want to do with my free time too.
All right, name 8.
Well, but 7, 8, 9. That's why I was afraid.
Hey, we got one more shout out from a Gonna Geek Network member. I'm literally about to finish my whiskey, so let's see what they had to say.
Hey, Cody, Jonathan, it's Naki from All Things Good and Nerdy. Hey, so you remember? Yeah, I just got back from the doctor, and I got something we all got to talk about. Something, you know, that one weekend that we all kind of went away and.
Hey, Naki, you do know we're calling the underqualified game guys to say congrats on episode 1000, right?
It's like 200, you idiot.
No, it's 1000.
No, it's 200.
They can't possibly be at that. It's got to be like 50.
Well, regardless, underqualified game guys or whatever the heck you call yourselves, congrats on whatever this episode monument is.
I think it's undignified players.
Ooh, that might be it. Do you remember what this is, Anthony?
It's unquantified framers. Congrats to Jody and Connor. Yay!
Yay!
You guys rock. Congrats on your achievement.
Go team.
Alright, well, that was horrifying. Guess what I just did, John?
You got yourself some more whiskey.
I didn't even pour it. I just had a second tumbler sitting next to me. .tumblr.com.
Hey, this network, it's really working out.
Listen, I did not expect that from All Things Good and Nerdy, on which I have guest hosted.
You have
several.
literally guest hosted their podcast before.
I have literally guest hosted. Okay. Hey, look, we have a listener question. This will be much more appropriate than whatever we just had to deal with. Christopher Long asks a real question for you guys. When did you?
You're right. It's perfectly appropriate for this podcast. Perfectly appropriate.
Listen, why don't you read it, John? I'm letting you participate more actively as a host.
Christopher Long writes, a real question for you guys. When did you learn about snowballing? Well, Christopher, it was a winter back in 2012. I remember it like it was yesterday.
It's mall rats. It's mall rats. So when you see mall rat or clerks. So you see clerks for the first time. So probably, oh God, when did you first see Clerks?
I don't know. When I was like 17, maybe earlier. I have
16,
no idea.
17, 18, high school, I would say. I hope not before then.
I honestly have no idea.
Well, in high school we learned about snowballing, and go watch Kevin Smith's Clerks if you don't know what that is. All right. So what did you play this weekend, John? Now that I'm going to go back to pretending that, we're doing a video game podcast.
Yeah. So,
I didn't finish talking about Hearthstone.
You didn't. You have a warrior deck unlocked now. Is that the only deck you have unlocked?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
The only deck I'm at level 10.
Yeah, so that's fully unlocked. That's good, though. And you're having fun with it.
Yeah, I guess. As far as video games go.
I mean, something you want to keep playing, you think?
Yeah, because it's so accessible. That's the thing. I have like 30 games on my desktop. I have all these desktop icons, shortcuts to Steam games, and I won't click them because they're all too big of a commitment.
Right.
Which is really weird.
No, I get that.
Do you? Okay, because I really wanted to play Transistor, but instead I ended up building an app for our podcast.
And I think that that's a better use of your time. Certainly, I wouldn't have helped with that. So,
well, what'd you play? Let's talk about you for once in my life.
Yeah, I played some more Warframe, which is getting fun. Like, I finally unlocked some other stuff. It took me like 15 hours to unlock another gun. So now I'm changing between guns and I'm leveling up multiple things, and it's fun. And the game is like legitimately just it's the moment-to-moment gameplay is really fun. So I am going to keep playing that on a casual basis, which is kind of how I'm playing it now. And I also tried... So I've talked about Don't Starve on this podcast before, right?
Yeah, didn't it just introduce a multiplayer mode to that?
So Don't Starve Together is a multiplayer version of the game.
Wait, is this an official version?
Well, it's in beta, so it's technically early access right now. You can pay $10 on Steam to get 4 copies of the beta, or you can just wait until $10 to get 4 copies of the beta.
Where's my copy? Did you buy me one?
I don't know if I did. I did buy, maybe it's 2 copies of the beta. I think it's 4 though. I have to check my inventory. Anyway, or you can just wait for the game to get officially released, and then if you have a copy of the original game, you also get a copy of Don't Starve Together. It's going to be like kind of like an add-on to the original game. So we have a friend, Max, who we've talked about before, and he owned the game, but he had never played it. And I asked him one day, I was like, Max, have you played Minecraft? Because I feel like I had heard him talk about Minecraft before. And he said, yes, I put a lot of hours into Minecraft. I really liked it. And I was like, have you heard of Don't Starve? Have you tried it? And I had already played Don't Starve for maybe like 20 to 30 hours at this point. And he said, yeah, I've heard of it. In fact, I own it, but I've never played it. And I said, okay. If you played Minecraft and you liked it, you should really check out Don't Starve. Also, here's a copy of Don't Starve Together because I just bought this. So you have a copy so we can play this together. And he never actually tried the base game. Well, actually, maybe he did. Maybe he tried the base game before we played the multiplayer together. Either way, I tried Don't Starve Together.
With Max?
With Max. And it's quite literally the base game of Don't Starve. It is just the game with multiple people in it. And that's about it. You can like give each other items and stuff, but for the most part, it is the exact same game as the base game of Don't Starve, just with multiple people. And at first I was like, man, that's going to kind of break it because it was tuned in such a way so that like you really need to constantly be like working to make sure that you have enough supplies to survive in Don't Starve in the original game, right? And so I was like, well, 2 people are just going to be able to like create stuff much faster and create engines in the game much faster, like a food engine much faster, and they're not going to have to worry about food or anything really. And then we played it, and I was like, "Holy crap! This is actually really hard because you have to generate enough food for 2 people." Which, if you've ever played the game, generating enough food for 1 person is difficult, let alone generating enough food for 2 people.
Because the point of the game is to not starve. It's called Don't Starve.
Right, and then there's also a lot of stuff that wants to kill you and drive you insane. So Max and I were playing, and we started to create a food engine, and we like had one going, and we were killing rabbits, and we were cooking them in crock pots, but we couldn't create them fast enough for both of us. We couldn't cook them fast enough for both of us, and Max ended up starving and dying. So we were done. And I mean, he had it coming, to be fair.
Look at him.
I know. So he starved, and we were done the first time. So we just recently played our second game, and that took us, about 2 hours that first time, and we played it again, and we've actually played 3 games now, and in the second game, we were doing well, and we had a great food engine going, and everything was going great. And we had these two farms. We had farms of grass and twigs, and it was growing, and we were using it to create traps, and everything was great. We had a great system going for each other. We were being very productive during the day, and then there was this giant lightning storm, and Max and I were like, we should really make a lightning rod, which is a thing you can make in the game to attract lightning bolts. And so we said that, And then a minute later, lightning struck the 2 farms that we had made and literally turned everything we had done up until that point into ash.
Ash Ketchum? It turned into a Pokemon game?
And so we starved. Together.
Because you didn't eat any Pokemons.
So we, that was our second game. And then the third game, which we just recently played, we had, like, the best setup we had had to date. And everything
you had to date each other to play the game? Is this
everything
in terms of service?
And everything was going awesome. And then Max decided he wanted to attack the chess pieces on a chess set because you need gears, which they drop gears, and Max decided he wanted them, and he died. And that was that. So we had this wonderful thing going. We had a beautiful thing together, and he went and basically got himself killed. So that was my third game of Don't Starve. So to be perfectly honest, I have actually found Don't Starve together because of Max's inept abilities. I have found it actually harder than playing the game by myself.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that being said, like most games, it's more fun when you're playing with other people.
Right.
So it's kind of fun to sit there and strategize, over Skype as like, all right, tomorrow I am going to go out and I'm going to dig up a bunch of grass and I'm going to replant it in our base. And he'll say, all right, I'm going to go lay a bunch of traps for rabbits and then I'm going to go kill myself by trying to get gears. And I say, no, Max, don't do that.
Does he really say that? Does he really say that?
And he says, no, he doesn't. But that's basically what happened. So the game is actually really fun. Like, get some friends, play Don't Starve together. You can get it for cheap. And Don't Starve, I've talked about it before. It's really fun. It's great.
That does sound great. And speaking of friends, we have a friend of the podcast who actually sent us a congratulatory message.
Well, I mean, if it might not be part of our network, maybe it will be more accurate.
This is not only from outside the network, but also this is from someone who literally has been on our podcast. And we've only had like 5 guest hosts ever. So this is kind of a big deal. He's also one of our most avid listeners. He interacts with us all the time on YouTube and on Google+, so we know that he will know exactly who we are. And because I put out a little message, I was like, hey, if you have anything nice to say, send us a little clip. So I'm sure that he hit record, knew exactly what he was doing. This will be really great. Let's listen to what our really good friend of the podcast, our immensely good friend Jamie Butterworth, had to say to us on this, our 100th episode of Unqualified Gamers.
Alright, what's the next one scheduled here? It's kind of scratched out. I can't really read that. I'm going to make a little bit of it out. Well, I guess I'll just have to wing it. I'm sure it'll be fun. Hey guys, Jamie Butterworth of the Butterworthy YouTube channel. I just want to give a shout out to my good buddies Jon and Curtis. And it looks like they're going to be celebrating their anniversary soon. I knew you guys were going to go for the long haul when you got married last year. So, anyway, guys, I wanted to wish you the best of luck on your upcoming 100th episode of the Uneven Garments Podcast. I wish you all the best for the future. You guys are awesome. And, yeah, you're going to do great from here on out. So, catch you later. Peace.
Were there any more?
There were.
Just play the next one. The next one's. I'm sure the next one.
Yeah, I think. Again, there's a lot of whiskey. There's a lot of whiskey. You could say this is whiskey in a jar, rah.
I don't know if that one was meant for us. I
think it may have been meant for a different podcast.
Yeah,
is what that was. He's got a great YouTube channel, but yeah, I think he's thinking of a different. All right, well here, this one is from. This one, all right. This one has to be that we're good. All right.
Hi, I'm Steven, head geek at GonnaGeek.com. And I'm Stargate Pioneer from Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, Voices of Defiance, and the GonnaGeek.com podcast, all proud members of the Gonna Geek Network.
SP and I just wanted to get together today to wish Jon and Cody a happy 100th episode.
And here's to 100 more, boys.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, that was
all right, I'll save. Thanks for doing that with me, man. Have fun.
Hey, you think the guys will like it, or do you think it sounded a little too pluggy?
I think it's all good. Have you heard how much Jon plugs the network usually on the Starling Tribune? He's pretty pluggy.
You ever listen to the Starling Tribune? That's around Jon. Do you even know who we're recording this for tonight?
I love waking up to their Sunday show. It's a great live broadcast. I love it.
You're awful. That's all things good and nerdy.
I'm just messing with you. No, in all seriousness, I do love their news stream. It's a perfect amount of time for me to mow the lawn. I love it.
What? News stream? That's Legends Podcast. Know your own network, you idiot. I gotta keep going.
Thanks for recording this with me.
Yeah. How does he not know who Unqualified Gamers is? He owns the dang network.
So that's our commander-in-chief of the Gonna Geek Network.
Yeah, I know.
It's our 100th episode spectacular, really.
Did you finish your whiskey, by the way?
It's gone. It's gone. I could really use some more.
I have drank way too much of it this eve.
Yeah.
On this eve. Don't Starve Together sounds great. Guess what? I still play on weekends with Max and occasionally other people because you're never around.
I'm going to guess my #1 game of last year, Risk of Rain.
Risk of Rain.
Is
so
still
good.
the best game like ever? It's so much fun.
So good. It
is
such a good game.
It is. It really is.
Risk of Rain. And our friend Blake apparently does play games other than Castlevania and Mega Man, so he was mad that we didn't tell him there was a game we were all playing together. So now there's a newcomer, so now we get to teach him all that stuff. I don't know. If you're on some weekend, would you play that game?
I absolutely would. I mean, my gaming time often happens in the evening now because that is when the boy is asleep. So that's...
And I haven't played much lately either. I try to give my very serious girlfriend attention when she is in my presence, as opposed to simply playing Risk of Rain and Skyping with people in Russia and other various locations, because she's my very serious girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
And I'm definitely not emphasizing that.
That sounds pretty serious.
It's on the serious side, one could say.
That sounds pretty serious.
It is more seriouser than it is not serious. Let me tell you, you know what's interesting is, like, if we always drank whiskey on the podcast, I don't think it doesn't affect... Well, it doesn't... Okay, so let me put it this way. Whiskey doesn't affect me like it affects you. You lush, you slovenly, simplistic, surreptitious, sensual, slothful...
It's the wrong word.
Slenderman.
Slenderman is right. Yep, no, that's correct.
All of those things. Not All Things Good and Nerdy, which is a podcast on the Gonna Geek Network.
Yeah, they gave us a shout out for our 100th episode.
You know, I hesitate to even do this. We have one more shout out, and maybe this one gets it marginally more accurate than the rest, which were all very good, intentioned. Well, listen to this.
Do you think...
Hi, I'm Steven, head geek at GonnaGeek.com.
We just listened to that one, Cody, you klutz.
Do you think we should save that last one to take us out? Maybe, you know, maybe we should wrap up and go out with that. You know, because I bet...
I don't have any condoms, John. I'm not sexually active.
The last one's got to be... It's always the best one, right? It's got to be the best.
Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. We have an application. That stands for app. That's short for app. Application is short for app. In the App Store, Google Play Store. Do you hear me?
I do.
Do you have an Android tablet?
I should download that.
Or do you have an iPad?
I have an iPad.
Well, you're garbage. Because if you have an Android tablet or phone or device, You can download the Unqualified Gamers podcast streaming app from the Google Play Store. Then what?
I think what Cody is trying to say is that for those of you that have been here since the beginning, we are legitimately, in all seriousness, humbled by your presence. We appreciate you listening to us, and we hope we can continue to give you content over the next 100 episodes that you will continue to listen to. I think that's what Cody was trying to say.
And I will, and we will. Because I will make Jon talk to me for 100 hours in front of microphones.
It's pretty much my version of hell.
Pretty much. And we are not resting on our laurels. We have things planned. Not only did I just complete a website expansion as well as a sizable migration, but also Jon and I have applied to host a live podcast at a gaming convention later this year.
The one that we always talk about and go to.
However, we will not give details because it's just an application. But we may do a live podcast at a video game at a gaming convention. That is not a video game convention, but we may do a live podcast in the near future. And also, Jon and I have done some discussing, and we may also be producing some content that is not video game related.
Soon.
So, for those of you who listen just because you love the two of us, first of all, I would suggest seeking a drug therapy program. Alcoholics Anonymous is one. There are many others. But if you do enjoy us, you may enjoy us in other contexts soon. If you just sit through this podcast, ignore the gaming stuff just to get to us, you may not have to do that soon. We're thinking of branching out.
Also, what's wrong with you?
What?
I said, also, what's wrong with you?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking to the listener. Like, what's wrong with you if that's what you're listening for?
Oh, I thought you were talking to me, because I'm telling you what's wrong with me in this sentence that I'm about to complete, but is not yet complete, and, comma, ampersand, the end of that is the whiskey and a jar. That's a Metallica reference, by the way.
So, before we close out and play this last clip, the one that's sure to be better, we did get one more favorite moment of our podcast, and it's by another listener that I know has listened for a long time, and that's John Alex Cologne.
Oh, yeah, John Cologne. Really?
Yep, and he just wrote, my favorite moment is that one time when you guys kept saying decoupage and arguing about context. Which I don't remember exactly how that went, but I remember you being wrong, so wrong, about the meaning of the word decoupage. So, in fact, I believe that was an intro to another show, if I'm not mistaken.
John is a fantastic listener who's always really supportive, and I always very much appreciated that, actually. We have talked about decoupage extensively, which Ryan D. referenced in our last episode, episode 99, and I recommend listening to that because Jon and I about died when he did that.
Yeah.
That was definitely a highlight of all time. And we did get one more comment from someone asking us to give our thoughts on H1Z1. That's like the third person asking us about it. What is H1Z1? Is it a zombie?
It is. It's another game like DayZ.
Okay.
So it's like an open world, and I've actually watched some streams of it, and it actually looks a little more like video gamey than DayZ. So like, it looks like it's got some more like stuff like the way you loot stuff in the game. It looks like more of a video game, but it's like an open world zombie exploration game. So, to be perfectly honest, they're not really my bag. Like,
they're not really your cup of Z?
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
Speaking of, are you ready for this seamless ass transition, mofo?
I'm ready. I'm ready to take
Is your body ready? Check this out. Well, speaking of DayZ...
Insert it right here. Insert it inside right here.
We were about to hear from someone from a Walking Dead podcast, which is also zombies. I'm so done. I can't even. I literally can't even.
So, listener, this will take us out, but thank you so much for sticking with us for so long. And we can't wait for you to stick with us for even longer.
I can't wait for you to stick this.
Hey guys, this is Steve Boyd, co-host of Walking the Walking Dead podcast on the Gonna Geek Network. Long-time listener, first-time caller. A little emotional right now, too. I feel like I've been listening to you guys for, it's been, what, like 20 years now? You've been an inspiration to me in podcasting. Was right around episode 2, maybe? Episode 2? Was it number 2? When you did the episode revealing parental test results? You got me right here. Truly set the standard in podcasting, guys. You got me right here. Anyway, congrats on your big 75th episode, and if you could do a follow-up on that chick that 25 guys on prom night, it would be much appreciated. Thanks again, and check out Walking the Walking Dead podcast when you get a chance. Thanks, guys.
Walking the Walking Dead podcast. Not a bad way to end a 3,000th episode of Unqualified, a video game podcast, where two guys with no business developing video games and then giving them positive reviews because game journalists paid us to give them good reviews.
Literally not a single person said anything accurate about our podcast.
Talk about video games.